dissertation project had kind of a long journey to get there. So really it was a culmination of different interests that I pursued through various film and media classes that I took in early grad school. As I, really dug into my dissertation research and figured out or explored where I was going to be able to have the largest impact, I was drawn so heavily to the women that at least started working in ink and paint at Disney. And this was right around the time that Mindy Johnson's sort of seminal ink and paint book came out, which, is a Disney publication and largely representative of something that you would see coming out of the studio archives, but was just a wealth of information about what the women were doing that were in that department and the contributions that they had both to the artistic development of the films, but also the technological development. And that became really interesting to me because it seemed like this area of the industry that was typically thought of as kind of routine, not very creative, more in the realm of what I think, Erin Hill refers to as light manufacturing, actually had a lot of creative agency.
Currently, you are a senior CG coordinator at the very well-known and esteemed jewel in Oregon's crown, LAIKA Studios. And so I want to hear a little bit more about how you made the journey into that.
My journey to LAIKA is really rooted in the experiences that I had in academia that started at the University of Oregon and that really was driven by my dissertation research. In 2019, after I had received my grant from CSWS, I was able to travel to LA, both to attend the D23 convention to do some initial fan contact industry research and hear from Disney executives what it was that was coming up for the studio, but also to conduct interviews with folks that were part of the film industry. So these early contacts that were primarily driven around my dissertation research and my desire to gain some insight into what production cultures were like ended up being really fruitful for me in 2020 when I started exploring the possibility of other career paths. One of the other opportunities that I had during my trip to LA was to meet with a former UO student, Samantha Stendhal, who was a coordinator at Disney at the time. So I had the chance to visit the campus and see the layout of the studio and hear about her work in production coordination. It's interesting because I've always loved film and loved animation and have been such an avid fan, but didn't think that a career in the industry was available to me because I don't really consider myself a creative person in that way. So to hear what these folks who are helping organize the projects were doing was really fascinating because it was all of the elements of academia that I really loved. Things like working as a part of a team, problem solving, critical thinking, organizing projects towards a deadline with a common goal, and less of the stuff that I didn't love or wasn't as good at. So in 2020, I'd say the second half of 2020, I started reaching back out to some of these people, Tracy Miller-Zarnicki especially, and Samantha Stendhal, and doing informational interviews and just asking them hey, can we talk again? But this time I want to hear more about your work and how you got to where you are. The other great thing that was happening at the time is because of COVID, a lot of industry panels were moving on Zoom that had previously been hosted in LA. So I attended as many of the sort of conventions or conference panels related to career growth and women in the film industry that I could from organizations like Women in Animation. After those panels, I would just reach out to folks that had presented, introduce myself, say something about what they had said or what they had shared, and ask if I could give them a phone call. So eventually through this method, my network really grew and I was able to find contacts with more folks both in LA and also in Oregon, which led to more opportunities to interview with studios and eventually led to the opportunity to interview with LAIKA. The other thing that was really valuable in this transition was humbling myself. Because despite the fact that I was getting a PhD, the applications that I was putting out there for internships at Disney, PAs, like the lowest level of the film industry, didn't matter. That experience wasn't resonating. So I had to really learn how to translate what I was doing in academia so that it was more palatable to what someone in the industry was looking for.
But I'm wondering whether in the actual journey, once you're inside the industry, whether all the studying and reading and teaching you did somehow did help you again and became like value for you in terms of your own career mobility as well as what you were able to do for the studio.
Oh, 100%. And I think that the production leadership recognized that right away as well. What had previously been difficult for them to understand, as soon as they saw it in practice, became one of my greatest strengths. Both my ability to organize meetings, and not organize just in the sense of like gathering people together, but establishing an agenda is very similar to planning a lesson or running a class. Critical problem solving, we run into problems all of the time. They're often unpredictable and they often need to be resolved very quickly. And the ability to think quickly and look at a situation from multiple angles is definitely one that I attribute to my graduate training and the research methodologies and thinking skills that we're practicing in seminars all the time.
What type of reflections, thoughts, associations have you been able to draw between the on-screen and the off-screen in terms of your interest in animation?
You know, it's amazing. Especially as I was going through my dissertation project, and Erin Hill was a huge inspiration for that project. I, really admire her work that she did with Never Done. I started to see the ways in which certain types of labor in the broader film production process, especially in animation, were feminized. They were, maybe at one time considered to be women's work. And while that isn't necessarily true anymore, we don't have entire departments where women are sitting and inking and painting, thankfully, there's still a lot of that breathes through the film industry. It's a part of the history and it's a part of the broader culture and society that I think still resonates. I think in a lot of ways, and Erin Hill says this towards the end of her book and in her epilogue, the feminized work of light manufacturing, secretarial work, has developed into what we would consider lower tier production management work now. And I do still see a lot of women in production management roles. I think in a lot of ways the skills that academia has helped foster in me and that I've brought to my career would be considered feminized skills in writing and organization and communication. And soft skills of people management and dealing with emotions and being able to maintain your cool in a stressful environment. There's this dynamic push and pull of folks that are aware and trying to make change and acknowledge where we can push back against unfair circumstances, but also attempting to win and play within a system that we're ultimately kind of indoctrinated in a lot of ways.
And finally, I would really love to hear from you advice that you might give to associates of CSWS who are looking to make a transition from traditional academic jobs to working in the industry, working in other spaces. What would you say are some critical things that helped you that you would ask them to think about as they try to make this transition?
Well, I cannot overstate the importance of the informational interview and just connecting with people. Folks, it feels, when you hear about networking, it feels kind of icky at first. It feels like you're going in with an agenda. I don't think that that's true. At the end of the day, people love talking about themselves. They love talking about what they love and what their story is and how they got there. And the absolute best time that you can get the information that you seek about an industry that you're interested in is maybe when you're not actively looking for a
Yes.
job and you're able to just forge a genuine connection and there isn't that agenda present.
Yeah.
So I think the earlier you can start reaching out to folks in jobs that you might even be remotely interested in, the better. Fostering and nurturing those relationships, whether it be periodically going back and asking how they're doing, or remembering little details that come out of those interviews on the human level, I think is really important. Because at the end of the day, while I had all of the skills and training from academia to do my job successfully, and while those skills were able to help me elevate my career very quickly once I got in the door, it was the people that I met and talked to that helped me get in the door in the first place.
Yeah.
The other thing is really thinking about what you have to bring to the table and understanding how those skills do translate and the way that we can reframe the work that we're doing here so that it is more palatable or speaking the same language of the industry you're trying to enter into. You know, a dissertation project is a type of project management. Instructing or teaching a class is a type of people management. And the more that I think we can start to frame the skills, the easier it is to get those opportunities to get your foot in the door. I realized that a lot of the industry panels that I gravitated towards were focused around women entering film and women's role in the industry and how to overcome some of the barriers to a creative career in filmmaking, or even to a production career. So, you know, that could be indicative of my particular interests that we've identified and circles. But I think that women are excited to help other women, especially the ones that are participating in things like Sister Soko Media and Women in Film and Women in Animation. You know, those organizations have lots of mentorships and volunteer opportunities that I think are great to take advantage of. And the women who are even not volunteering at those organizations but are part of the highest level of production management who are coming in to do these interviews are there because they want to help people and they want to share their knowledge and make it easier for the next generation to come. I remember the kind of surprise and awe that I felt after one of the industry panels that I attended. I was able to make contact with and have a phone conversation with someone who was like a vice president at Paramount.
Oh, wow.
And she was very supportive and willing to say, like, if you apply for a job here, put my name down, reach out, let me know. So there are those people out there that are willing to even put themselves out there for someone that they don't know as well, because they're that passionate about seeing things shift.